Now to the other big news today, the coalition is no more. Nationals leader David Littleproud announcing earlier today that the Nationals will not be reinstating a coalition agreement with the Liberals at this time. Here's what he had to say.
Our party room has got to a position where we will not be re-entering a coalition agreement with the Liberal Party after this election. What we have got to a position is that the National Party will sit alone on a principled basis. Their need to rediscover who they are and what they want to be. We're very clear about who we are and why we're here.
Patrick, is this heading for divorce, or is it just a trial separation and they're going to kiss and make up before the next election?
I think it's a time-out, you'd call it, at this stage. Look, the Nationals did pretty well at the election.
They did.
I think they've lost one seat over the last two elections. The Liberals got smashed. The Liberals don't know who they are or what they want to be. They don't know how they're going to appeal to, particularly young people and to women in those electorates where they did so poorly. The Nationals, in contrast, actually did very well. They want to prosecute the policies that they took to the election and those policies which won over electorates in a very successful way. So, look, I think you can assume they probably get back together at some point. They have split 3 times previously, which I didn't realise. It does happen from time to time, and it probably is a good time for a time-out.
Well, the Nationals seem to have a much firmer idea of who they are, what they stand for, and it speaks to the electorate because, as you said, they did pretty well in an election campaign that was disastrous for the coalition overall. There's only, I think, 5 or 6 seats between them. The Nationals could be the lead opposition, which would mean the Prime Minister or the alternative Prime Minister could come from them. So it's quite a different set of circumstances to what we've seen in the past.
Look, I think it just emphasises that regional city divide, which has been really growing rapidly, especially over the last 10 years. What the Bush is talking about and what the Bush cares about is dramatically different to the rhetoric coming out of Canberra and out of the capital cities. They have their own interests, and the Nationals did a good job of representing those interests. And it'll be interesting to see. Look, I don't know how you change that divide. I don't know how you bring it back together, but it's there.
The issue of net zero is going to be crucial energy policy. If Susan Lee wants to go down this renewables road and stick with net zero, then perhaps this reconciliation is not going to be as amicable as you would like, because the Nationals, and they certainly have people within the party who are outspoken on this, want this policy abandoned. They see it as holding the party back. And you've got to say, since they embraced net zero in 2021, they've lost 2 elections in devastating circumstances.
Absolutely. Look, the Nationals are realistic. They're saying we need nuclear. The renewables is not going to work. And I think time will tell. And I think that will be shown to be so, that nuclear has to be on the table. They haven't sort of run away from that. The coalition, together sort of brought forward this nuclear idea. Then the Liberals sort of ran backwards from it at 1,000,000 miles an hour, whereas the Nationals have said, well, we need this. This is what we need. So, and look, the Liberals need to do a lot of soul searching over many months to actually work out who they are and what they're going to do. The Nationals are an entity unto themselves, and they're doing pretty well.
They are. They're certainly doing better than the Liberals at the moment. Now to the other side of the aisle, and Anthony Albanese's Welfare Working Group, known as the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee, what a name, is pushing for Labor to end its $6.8 billion power bill rebate scheme and instead redirect that money to more solar panel and battery subsidies, more money for the renewable sector from your taxes. Patrick, what do you think of this suggestion?
Look, there's a standout statistic in this discussion. Power prices across Australia have gone up 47% this year, out-of-pocket prices, at 47%. There's no way in the world politically this government is going to drop out the rebate. They need the rebates just to keep everything going. And it just seems so pie in the sky. I mean, low-income people, subsidising solar batteries on their roofs? How are they going to find the difference, which is, $5,000, $10,000 to try and save the planet?
Absolutely. And a lot of low-income people rent. So how are they going to be getting subsidies for this? It is so harebrained, but then so is the whole notion that renewables are cheaper and we keep pumping money into renewables and our power bills keep going up. I wonder at some point we're going to sort of realise, well, maybe the renewables aren't that cheap after all. Now to the insane cost of real estate in this country, including parking spots. 6 parking spots in Sydney's CBD have sold for, get this, $608,000 each at auction, each. And it's supposed to be, Patrick, a record price per space. That is crazy. In most countries, they would look at that and would refuse to believe that. 600,000 in whatever currency that transfers to would buy you a substantial house in most countries.
Absolutely. Look, I think there was 92 inquiries for these car parks.
Wow.
It is prime real estate. It's near Circular Quay in Sydney. It is.
It's
if you've got
still
a
parking spot.
It is a parking spot. They had 30 bids. They went past the reserve after 4 bids, I think. It shows there is still money around. And something like that, look, that is very desirable to have those car parks.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I know you're a footy fan, so before you go, I want to get your input on this story. The AFL has been lobbied in recent years to make it mandatory for each club to recruit at least one Indigenous player. What do you make of this proposal? The number of Indigenous players on AFL lists has reduced in recent years, but do we really need to have quotas and mandatory recruitment?
Look, like quotas in every aspect of industry across the board, they don't work. And it's not going to work in an elite sport context, is it?
No.
Look, the numbers are sad. I think there's 87 Indigenous players playing AFL 5 years ago. It's down to 62.
Still is an over-representation, though. I mean, obviously, a lot of Indigenous players are hugely popular, some of the best players in the league, and they've always been over-represented. So the rationale for a quota or a mandatory recruitment requirement seems a bit odd.
Well, it simply wouldn't work. Those players, if they were recruited as, as a quota sort of deal, they're not going to get games. Like,
exactly.
They're not going to play AFL. It's not going to work. I mean, a lot of things need to be done. There are systemic issues here in terms of getting great players to the AFL, playing field. And there's lots that needs to be done, but quotas is not going to fix anything.
Patrick, Carlyon, thanks for your time tonight.